Thanks everyone for joining, and hopefully this will be an interesting talk to you. This event's funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and it's being delivered through the Fenland District Council's Wisbech High Street project. I'm Philippa McDonnell, I'm from Lincoln Conservation, and I'll be presenting the talk today, which is on virtual immersive environments. But we also do have some people from Wisbech, so if you have any sort of specific questions, pop them in the chat as well. You'll see they're called Community Hub Wisbech. So if you have any technical issues, let them know, but a lot of issues can be sorted by logging off and logging back on again normally. And again, if you have any questions, please do ask them along the way. We'll have questions at the end, but if something relevant comes up, then I can answer it as we go along as well. So please feel free to pop them down in the chat box there. So I'm talking today a bit about virtual immersive environments. It's a bit of a strange term, so I'll talk about what that actually means and what that actually involves. But firstly, I'll just talk about why I'm presenting to you. So I'm from the University of Lincoln, from Lincoln Conservation, and Lincoln Conservation is a conservation company that's wholly owned by the University of Lincoln. And although we work on things like paint research and materials analysis and sort of practical conservation, we also do a lot of digital heritage. So the kind of overlap between a lot of the digital technology that's going on today and the kind of history and heritage and conservation. So really kind of merging this new technology with the sort of with old historic buildings. And although we do objects, we'll be talking today mostly about buildings when we're talking about environments. So hopefully by the end of today, you'll understand what we actually mean by the term virtual immersive environments, and to kind of understand the idea of what's called 3D infrared scanning, and how that differs from some other 3D scanning processes that you might have heard about as well, and just to kind of help talk through some of the terminology. And then we'll help you understand what you can actually do with something with virtual immersive environments and how you can actually apply it yourself, and how you can actually work through a project from start to finish. So we'll kind of work you through one of those. And also as well, we'll help understand what the limitations of virtual immersive environments are. No technology is a magic wand and everything has its limitations. So with that, we'll just give you a quick idea of the sort of cameras that we're talking about. When people talk about 3D scanning, it can be really complicated and really data heavy, and get some really very accurate, minute scans. And you can also do it on quite a large scale as well. So depending on what we want to get a scan of, sometimes we use a small handheld scanner, you see on the sort of middle of this chart here, and they are really accurate, have a lot of data, but you can also use photogrammetry as well, which is stitching together photographs. And then the bigger the object gets, we tend to use slightly different processes that help to still capture the same data, but with a little bit you lose some accuracy just because of the quantity of size of data that you get. So the sort of cameras that we'll be looking at are the ones on the far right hand side, and this is the Matterport camera here. However, Matterport also have a feature where you can do this through your phone as well. So if you don't have the technology of the camera, you can also do this just through a smartphone as well. Obviously this plays off in terms of quality. It will be a much lower quality if you just do it through a phone, but it is again a technology that is very accessible to everyone, not just to heritage companies as well. So what actually is this? So with virtual immersive environments, and when we're creating a 3D model using this, what we want to do is create a 3D copy, or what we call a digital twin. So we're essentially creating a model where we can use this and it completely exists in the digital world. And that means that we can do things with the space that we can't do to it physically, either because it's too difficult or expensive to change, or because people can't physically access it. So when we create a digital model, this means, again, this lives in the digital world and can be accessed through web access. So this means that it can be freely explored and shared with clients or contractors, or visitors or friends and family or whoever you want to. So it makes it much more accessible without people having to actually physically access it. You can also view a space from multiple angles as well and be able to kind of view a space in a different way. Again, obviously, when we're looking at a building in a physical space, it's very difficult to kind of comprehend what's going on sometimes because we're too close and we're inside. But when you can pull that big space and pull it into something as small as a laptop screen or a phone screen, we can start to get a bit of an idea and almost treat it like an object or a dollhouse. And this is what this view is called that you can see the image of here, a dollhouse view. And that really helps us understand and interact with things as well. And that also allows us to measure spaces as well, which I'll talk through in more detail later. Again, because things are digital as well, we can also actually embed media. So media can be anything from photographs to simple text to PDFs to videos to audio files. So again, this allows us to add an extra layer onto the information within a building without actually adding loads of signs or sort of disruptive things in the actual building as well. We can also create 3D walkthroughs and guided tours. So it's not just a video. People can interact with this space in their own way and they can walk around it in a way that feels like they have control over it as well. And again, because this now becomes into a digital file, we can also download floor plans and 3D files as well. So this can now be copied and used multiple times rather than just being a static building or a file that can only be used once. And as well, we can also link this into Google Street View as well. So this can go, this is really helpful if you want if you already have a presence online and you want to add an extra thing into Street View. So again, how does this technology work? This is my colleague Paul. He's walking around Doddenton Hall here, scanning their building. So what we do is this scanner that you can see here basically takes a 360 photo and also measures the space as well. And then it captures all of this data from that one specific spot. We then move it along to another spot and it does exactly the same thing. And this time it links all of the information it had before with the information it's got secondly. So it starts to build up a little picture of what's going on. And every time we move the scanner, that's where, when you're sort of in the digital world, that's where you would be called standing or walking to. So basically the scanner, the camera basically becomes the visitor. And this is all controlled through a mobile device, either a phone or an iPad. And I think at the moment it's only available on iOS, but I think Android might be coming out later. But again, it's very, very user-friendly. And so this is what you can see. So all these little dots here are every time we do a scan. So every time this scanner stands on a certain spot, it measures which spots it's standing on here. And it starts to collect data. But it can only collect data from things it can see, and it can only see a certain width. So it's a bit like standing in a dark room and shining a torch around, and everything that light hits, it can capture. So you can see at this top section, you can see the corridor start to fizzle away, and that's just where the camera has seen that much, and then the data it can collect start to lose off. So it's a bit like if you were standing in that dark room with a torch, it's the bit that the light couldn't quite reach. And the same way as well, if you're standing in a dark room with a torch and you shine it at an object, that's going to create a shadow behind it as well. And so that happens here. So all these bits where you've got kind of weird black patches in it, that's where a data shadow has been collected as well. So we do lots and lots of scans to try and make sure that every single time we stand in a spot, we're trying to sort of shine that light into every sort of area so that we capture everything. And then eventually we'll upload this into the system and it will stitch everything together and create a dollhouse. So this is what you can see on the right hand side. So just a digital version of the house or building or area, that you can see again as a dollhouse, and it basically becomes like an image. And this isn't just photographs, it becomes an actual measured space as well. So how is this different from just, say, doing a 360 photo, where you can, you can look at a photo and move it around and have a look there? Well, the difference between this, the virtual immersive environments, and just a 360 photo is the fact that it's measured space. So it actually creates a model that has accurate space. Whereas if you're just having a 360 photo, you're basically standing within a globe, and the entire photo is wrapped around the inside of that globe, so you can't move around. It isn't really real space, it's just almost a trick of photography to make it look as if you're standing in a weird space. Whereas with the scanning that we do, it creates a real space. So you've got the walls are vertical and the floors are horizontal, and then the images are wrapped to this kind of accurate space. So that's the kind of difference, and that means that you can actually walk around, and it also means that then you can measure these spaces as well. So that's kind of what it is and sort of how it actually works. So that's kind of all the most technical I'll get today. And now I'll just start to talk about if you actually wanted to do this as a project. Where do you start? Say that you say, I want to create a digital model of this building. How do you go about that from start to finish to make it successful? And the first question you should ask yourself when you want to scan something is why? Why do you want to do this? Is it because you want to show other people the space? Is it because you have something of interest there? Is it that you want to share the space with people who can't physically access it? Whatever your reason for scanning, always think why, because the why will basically tell you what type of scanning you want to do and what type of environment you want to create. It also helps you when you're actually scanning about how to set up the room or the space. So the big question is, what story do you want to tell? And it would be exactly the same thing as if you were making a short film around the building or doing a photo shoot of a particular room. Once you've done the scan, you can't go in and change that. So if you wanted to, this is in our labs, our teaching labs up at the university, and the story we wanted to tell here was about the different objects that students had worked on. So we made sure that these were out and could be displayed, and that everything else looked nice and clean and tidy. And so it was dressed ready for that. So you go in thinking, what do I want to say? And so let me set up the space to tell this. And what as well is really important with the virtual immersive environments, again, is this ability to add data. So adding the text, adding videos, adding that extra layer of information. And this is added through sort of little hotspots here. And these basically pin onto an object or an area. And then when you hover over these will tell you information about it. So if you had a particular area that you really wanted to tell information about, or if you had an object that you wanted to talk about more, make sure that people can see this and that it's out, so that you can tell that story, so that when you go back and you want to put your little extra bit of information in, it's in that area there. So the preparation is really, really important, and you really want to know your end use before you start scanning, and that means that you can get much more out of this than just almost kind of like a novelty. It means that you can really get out of it everything that you possibly can. So let me talk a bit more about these hotspots. So again, these hotspots are these little pins that we saw just here. In here, they're all the same color, but you can actually change the color as well to help color code different types of information. When you have the software as well, you can easily toggle these on and off. So you can create, say here you've got sort of like 5 or 6 hotspots. You can create all of these and then turn them on and off if you want them or not. So if you wanted things to be seasonal or not, you could turn them on and off. Or if you just wanted to create loads in bulk, but not necessarily show them all, you can do that as well. And they add an extra layer of information. So it's basically like if you were walking around a country house or a museum and you have those kind of the sort of like the information boards and things like that. It's basically like that, but just in digital format. And again, this is where the idea of having a digital twin comes in, because people can both be in the physical building and be looking at the digital twin version of your building as well. So that means that if you had a building and you didn't want loads and loads of information boards around, which disrupt it, especially if it was something like your own house or something like that, and you don't want to put information boards around there or anything like that, it means that people can go in, they could maybe scan a QR code or have a website available, and it means that they can look at a digital version of the building whilst being in the full building. So if they're in a certain area, say here, they've got all this information literally at their fingertips, but when you're in the actual building, it just looks like there's absolutely no information and nothing's obscured and nothing's distracting either. So it adds a kind of like invisible layer of information. So again, this is what it looks like when it's just a very simple text. So again, we've just got a little title and some text about here. And again, this is again about storytelling and what you want to tell as well. And this is what it looks like in the software. So again, things are very easily toggled on and off. This little eye, you can just literally click it on and off and the hotspots will appear and disappear. So again, it's very, very user-friendly to work with there. And again, things can be color-coded how you would like. So why would we actually use something like virtual immersive environments in the digital, in the heritage sector, in the heritage industry? Why is something so kind of digital and futuristic useful for history and heritage? So one aspect is the fact that it creates a digital record or a copy, and so if anything gets damaged, that means that you have a sort of a measurable record of something as it was. So say a building burnt down, you could go back to the scan and see, oh, well, we had this, here's a photographic record, and we can measure it as well. We can walk around and see what's there. So instead of just working from photos where you can be, oh no, this photo is perfect from this angle, but I can't see what that angle is. You can walk around it and it just, again, creates a snapshot of the building at that point. It's also really good for planning and research of projects as well. So it really helps with project management, which I'll discuss a little bit later. And again, it helps as well with training people and for wayfinding as well. And again, just things like public engagement and accessibility. So again, recording the building. So it has an entire photographic record. And again, you can use the hotspots to add notes and unique observations. So again, if you had a cupboard door that was closed and you wanted to both show it open and closed, you could just put a little extra hotspot in there that would show it with a photo. And as well, from this, you can also automatically create building plans that are definitely not as accurate as architectural building plans, but they have a 1% margin of error, which is pretty close. So again, if you just wanted some quick building plans to use, these can be really useful as well. You can also create what's called ortho photos, so photos that are corrected so that they're correct perspective. And you can also export them into other 3D files, so things like CAD. So again, this can help to shortcut a lot of things as well. So here's a picture of a floor plan that's been automatically created. You can also take a complete photograph of the whole floor plan as well as having a dollhouse, and the one on the top left is the actual building as it is. So again, it gives you lots of ways to export data and view the building in lots of different ways, just from doing one scan rather than having to have several surveys being done. And again, this is what it looks like when it's exported as a CAD file as well. And then we have things like public engagement. So this is normally what people think of when they say, let's 3D scan the building and create a virtual tour or a digital tour. Let's use it for public engagement, which is a fantastic use for it. Again, it means that people who can't access a building due to sort of accessibility or due to just being too far away, means that they can actually have a chance to look round. And again, you can have this extra information, this extra layer of information that can be used that you might not want to put in the physical building as well. And you can also have links to websites and things like that. So again, you can kind of start to build this kind of this map of different digital platforms that you've already got. So it's a way of bringing together lots of spaces, lots of information into one place without having to overload the physical space. Also, because it's a measurable space, when you share the model that people can walk around, so when people are doing these sort of self-guided tours, there's also a feature where people can measure things. So that's really useful, for instance, if people had wheelchairs or buggies and they weren't sure if it was going to fit through a certain door width, they can simply measure a door width and see if they can fit in as well. So it's things like pre-planning before you visit. So every time we're like, so what to do before you visit, how to get here. And again, it's just an added layer onto that. It helps people feel more comfortable before they arrive that they're actually going to be able to get here. It also helps people with who may have sort of things like anxiety or something like that, if they're not entirely sure about visiting a building because it's unknown and they don't really know about it. And so it's a way of sort of calming people before they go there. They can look and familiarise themselves with the building before they actually visit. And again, it's just aiding visitor experience and helping everything go smoothly so that when they do actually physically visit, all they have to do is go and enjoy the building, and all these extra issues have already been preempted and taken care of before they actually arrive. So it really helps with visitor enjoyability. There is the argument as well sometimes where if people can visit it digitally, why would they bother coming to it physically? But there's definitely still a demand for physical visiting. So we did a small survey run through Friends of Friendless Churches back in 2019, asking if having a virtual immersive environment, so these digital tools, made churches more accessible. 98% said yes and 2% said no. But also what was interesting is we said, would digitally visiting the chapel help to encourage physical visiting? And 91% said yes and 9% said no, which is actually quite different to what we expected. Again, we thought potentially that if people digitally visited, they might not want to physically visit. But actually what we found is that digital visiting really, really encouraged people to actually visit because they knew that it would be worthwhile to visit and they wanted to see it physically as well. So it's never digital versus physical, it's always digital and physical, and it's never new technology versus old technology. It's new technology and new technology together. So you can also, when we're looking at hotspots here, another layer you can do is add in some videos. And again, this is another part of public engagement, and this is talking about the layering extra information as well. And if we just look at this, so again, we can just click on one of the hotspots, and we can have, for instance, a YouTube video that starts playing in there, and that keeps them in the model, and it just all plays within the model as well.
The 6th century.
So that's another layer of information we can put on. But beyond just the physical, the public engagement as well, it's also really useful in terms of planning as well. So again, if someone has walked around a building just as a visitor, but then potentially they wanted to use that as, say, an event space, you can also create a model that has that gives you the ability to see the space in a different setup. So this is the Old Victorian Theatre at Alexandra Palace down in London. And as you can see now, it was scanned when it was set up as a conference space. But also you can click on and you can see that there's foldable seating that's available as well. So again, it gives you a way to show the space in more than one way. So you can record the space in multiple ways. You don't just have to be like, this is the way it is now, and here's one photo of it. You could also scan the space when it's set up like this, and scan the space when it's set up like that, and put a link in so that you can link to both spaces. So people can kind of digitally visit both and see how it's set up, and it really helps to kind of like make that a little bit more alive, and you're not just limited on the ability to take really good photographs, because people could move around the space a little bit more and understand how it looks in different situations. And that really helps with going beyond public engagement and moving into more of the management side, how it helps show people how you can use your building for multiple uses, and that really helps with getting revenue in as well. Again, on more of the management side as well, in this day and age, especially after COVID helps to limit our where we want to go and how many places we want to physically visit. We might choose to physically visit places if we're just doing a site scoping visit. So, for instance, if someone wanted to use your space for an event and they wanted to know how big things were, or they wanted to have a site visit or a walk around, you could do that with them through your screen on like a video meeting. The same way a lot of physical meetings have switched to video meetings, a lot of site walkthroughs can now be switched to a digital walkthrough if they can't make it, or if they don't want to invest the time to come down. And again, that can really help sell your property in a way that so you won't completely miss out on showing someone around your building just because they're quite far away or can't access it. And again, this is really useful if you are actually running a project at the same time as well. It means that you can have virtual site visits. So again, if a contractor is talking about a specific room and you might be in a digital meeting, you can then go into that room and walk around and talk about it as if you were there as well. And again, if you're sending out a quote or a tender, or you wanted some work done on your property and you needed someone to come and measure it up, but say you were going on holiday for 4 weeks, but you wanted this when you were getting back, so you didn't have time for people to show people around and measure up, you could just send them a copy of the scan and they could do their measuring from this, or you could pre-measure it for them as well. So again, that helps cut down time and logistics for everyone as well. So it's a really useful tool in terms of that, not just for doing digital tools for public engagement, but also digital tools and digital workaround on a more sort of practical maintenance side as well. And again, you could use this as your hub for where things are stored. For instance, here you can put in, we've just put in a link to a PDF. A link to the website. So again, you could put things like actions from minutes and link them to an exact point in the building. And that could just really help with communication as well, and keeping everything all in one place. So almost like BIM, if people have heard of BIM for heritage, it could be a very simplified version of that. And again, you could put photos. So again, if you were walking around and again, as part of a management project, and you said, I want this particular area to be fixed, and here's a big photo of it up close. Again, it helps people know what you're talking about without necessarily having to have a big site visit. So again, it could something that could save you a lot of time and a lot of confusion just by popping an image into the model and say, and this gets updated as soon as you add it in. So say, oh, check the model on this area in this wall, I've put a new photo up of what I mean. And again, that can really, really help with communication without having to have people come visit the property at all. And again, we can also put PDFs in here as well, which I think we'll show here. And these can be read sort of in there as well. So again, you can be on a on a meeting and use this as a meeting and put it there as well. Or again, if you want someone to do some work in your building, you can also say, oh, please look at the file that I've put in there already. It'll be done to the exact area you want it to. People can read it whilst they're essentially walking through the building as well. And it's a good way of keeping all the information you want in one place without it all getting lost, and be able to share it in a slightly different way. And again, if you have a building scan before you have any work done to it, that scan then can then be recycled into a visitor engagement thing. So you have a before and after, and again that can help if you've got funding, just to show the difference. And again, it kind of helps show just how much work has gone into a project sometimes as well. So if you have a scan that's that you've scanned before you've had works done, this is a place called Mrs. Smith's Cottage before any work was done, and this scan can now show so like, look at the difference, look what the funding has done to help this, or look what it was like before, or even just for your own records, if there were, say, areas of wall exposed that you might need to sort of like refer back to later without having to dig big holes in the wall. This is another really good way to record how it was, and to kind of use that beyond its kind of initial scanning use as well. So it's really kind of recycling scans and getting the full use out of this immersive environment that you can. And again, it can really help with measuring. So we saw earlier with visitor engagement, it could be useful to measure areas in terms of access, but it can also be really useful to measure when you're trying to manage a project. Again, so say if you you knew there was something in the building that you wanted to move, but you couldn't get to your building at that time. Again, perhaps you're on holiday or away and couldn't get to the building. You can go back into the scan and say, I want this painting restored, but I need to get this painting frame restored, but I need to get it out the door. Will it fit? And you can just do a quick measurement and see, no, it's probably not going to fit. This might be a little bit more complicated than I think. So again, it's good for things like that when you either can't visit site, just to do a quick measurement, and also again to send to contractors to help them. And then again, you have the ability to access the inaccessible. So spaces that can only be accessed at a certain point, either because that's only when the door is open, or because it's so difficult to get there. So for instance, this is the bell tower in Lincoln Cathedral. And again, this can then be shown to people who can't access it, and you can be walked around and feel like a physical space. And again, you can also add in these extra layers as well. So you could have an audio file of what the bell sounds like it's ringing. So it really does give a really all-round experience, rather than just being shown, say, a video or something like that. So again, a video or a 360 photo, something like that, where you can just look at it. You can really add some slightly more sensory information in there as well. And then again, things like management for your own internal management between you and teams, or you and anyone else who is always in that building as well. So it can help you sort of like wayfind. So if you've got potentially, like, if it's a big building where you have a member of staff, or if it's even, again, just a contractor or something like that, and you can help, it can help wayfind, so almost act as a map that's a little bit more easy to understand than just kind of a plan. And you can, again, note in things like emergency exits or stairs that should be used at certain points in the day, or paintings that should objects that should definitely come out if there was a sort of a fire. Say you could give this to the fire team and say this is a priority, this isn't, things like that. And again, it really helps with day-to-day maintenance, emergency maintenance, and sort of like planned maintenance as well. And again, you can also use it to record things like temporary exhibitions or events. So again, this is how Alexandra Palace was set up when it was a conference. So, but imagine this was something like an exhibition that you might have put on, that you wanted to record and have people be able to sort of digitally access it and walk around it. And then once that exhibition, or the way that has been set up, gets set down and disappears, you still got a record of that. One, it's really great to have a record of it. Two, you can then help to still gain revenue from it, even though it's been set down. So, for instance, you could put the scan of it behind a paywall, and then you could still charge visitor entrance at a reduced fee to continue to see the digital version of an exhibition, potentially years after it was originally up. So again, it's things like that to really help kind of like create a digital twin and create a kind of a digital version of this physical space. So you're basically just multiplying the physical space that you've got and recording things that are there. So again, this is just how it looks like that. And again, it allows you to take photos from anywhere and any angle. So again, if you really wanted to, you needed to take one specific photo of a place, but you just don't have a photo of that area. And again, for some reason, you're away from the building and you couldn't get there, you can then go into this scan and take a photo from whatever angle you like, because again, every single angle has been recorded, so you can take it from anywhere. So again, that's really useful. And again, this is what the dollhouse looks like. So you can just jump in, you can pick your angle, say that you really wanted it from this area. And you can just choose the angle and then just take the photo that you like. And then that's your photo taken, and you have a sort of a high quality photograph from any angle that you wanted without even having to visit the space. And that takes you sort of minutes rather than the hours or potentially to go to site as well. And again, we have the 3D walkthroughs as well. So again, you can sort of be in it almost like Google Street View. You can look at it through a dollhouse, and again, you can jump into whichever area you like. So you could start at the front door, look at it like this, and immediately say that you want to jump into a different room, and immediately jump into there. And you can create this 3D walkthrough as well. So you can create a little video. So again, if you almost wanted to do a promotional video or just a video to show a little sort of idea of what's going on, you can kind of choose a room that someone could go into and walk around. And again, it's a nice little kind of like almost like a highlight reel or trailer of your building, just to kind of show people. So now we'll just jump onto some of the limitations. I've kind of spent a lot of time saying what this can do. There are things that that it's not, again, it's not perfect. So one of the sort of main limitations is outdoor scanning. Again, because a camera like this tends to use infrared, so whether you use it as a camera or whether you use your smartphone, it's using infrared to make a space. And so when there's really bright sunlight, that interferes with the infrared scanning, and it means that it doesn't always register scans correctly. So they might be in the wrong place, or you might have to do lots more scans than you thought you were going to. So that makes scanning outdoor spaces a little bit trickier. There are some very expensive cameras that you can use that will do outdoor spaces because they use a slightly different technology. But again, if you're using the most basic technology of it, then really indoor spaces work amazingly, but spaces where they're in direct sunlight don't. You can get around this by doing it on a very overcast day, or doing it just before the sun rises or just before the sun sets as well. So it's not impossible, but it is a bit more difficult. Sometimes as well, again, if you want to see the outside of the building, but for whatever reason it's impossible to have scanned the whole outside, or just because you didn't want the outside walls on so that you could see the dollhouse a little bit better rather than just seeing the outside walls, you get to see all of the insides. You can add 360 views, so all of these little pinpoints here are just a 360 photo. So that's the one where it's like it's wrapped around the globe and you can't move around. You can just stand in one spot, have a look around, but you can't measure anything or walk around either. So that's another way to get around that limitation. Oops. So hopefully, I've given you a quick overview of what virtual immersive environments are and 3D scanning in buildings to be able to walk around. So some of the benefits are that it's really quick and cost effective. It's really user friendly, and the quality stands good for personal and professional use as well. It's really portable. Again, you can use your phone or a very light camera to scan, so that you can do these in really small, inaccessible places. You don't need Wi-Fi or anything, so you can do it underground in tunnels. And again, you can it can be sort of very self-sufficient in that way, so you can do it in really remote locations. It really has a real versatile use. So again, one scan can have multiple uses, from whether that's helping with public engagement, helping anyone who has to work on your building to access it without needing to actually physically access it. So it's really undisruptive. And again, that scan can then be recycled and used in another way. So it's not just a one scan for one use, it's one scan for hundreds of different uses. Areas can also be turned off and on, so that even if you had scanned a whole building, you can make things a little bit more secure by not letting people into certain areas as well. And then again, the key limitations are things like with outdoor spaces, you need the right lighting conditions, so not bright sunlight. You do also need a monthly or annual subscription for the software that does this, which it can range from very affordable to a bit more expensive. I think the cheapest one you can get, apart from the free one, which is a little bit useless, the most useful one you get is something like $7.99 a month. So really, really affordable there. And again, the main difference with something like virtual immersive environments that uses infrared is a little bit less accurate than other methods of scanning, for instance, really in-depth laser scanning. So that's the benefits and limitations. And please let me know if you have any questions. I should stop sharing my screen now. Yes, Gary. If you just take yourself off mute.
You mentioned about taking areas off from public view, but one of the downsides of this is you are showing to the visitors all your collections, your valuable items, and of course the security in your building as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that's something that you always have to consider, and that's something that you can consider before you scan it. So maybe hiding some areas or making some areas of security really obvious or something like that. So again, if there's things like certain locks or certain sort of sensitive information, to sort of cover those areas up, or to just simply not scan those areas, or scan them and then hide them as well. So yeah, that is definitely the downside to it as well. You know, the more accessible you make a place, you know, if people can take advantage of that. Yeah. Yeah, Andrew.
Hi. Yeah, I'll admit straight off, I actually already do 3D scans and 360 tools, etc. But I'd love to use your presentation as an advert. Actually, it's it's really good. One of the things that I was just really come up from what Gary said is when we do 3D scans or 360 tours. I've previously worked mainly on the property market, but we started doing heritage sites. I can see Steve is on here, and we did one too of the museum while it was undertaking some work, just to show that it's done. And one of the things that we can do is you can actually blur out some of the background. So for example, security cameras or specific things can be blurred out, which, you know, can allay some of those security issues that a lot of people might have with it. And, you know, I think it was a great presentation. As I said, I'd love to get your recording and then put it on my website, so we're trying to get more and more heritage people to do these things, because it's worked well for the property market, and it can work just as well for the heritage market. So thanks for that. I really enjoyed it.
No worries. And yeah, this will be available on YouTube. So we'll upload it to the Wisbech YouTube, and I'm sure we can send out an email with that link. It should be up in the next few days or so. But yeah, I mean, exactly like Andrew said, that this entire software was created by the real estate industry in America, and we've basically just hijacked it for heritage because again, it has so many uses. So yeah, it's great for heritage. Any other questions?
Hi Pip, I'll just pop in because there's a question in the chat. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, or otherwise I can read it to you.
Yes, can you read it? Can't see it for some reason.
Yep, so Lorena's just said that she missed a part right at the beginning, so she just asked what software it actually is that you're using, because some of her first IT jobs were at CAD companies, so it's quite interesting for her personally.
Yeah, so this one's actually a software called Matterport. So it's an online subscription. Again, and yeah, so you just pay for it monthly. It's all cloud-based. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's very easy to use. It just takes a bit of experience to get the most out of it, if that makes sense. So it's it's like having a phone camera. It's very easy to snap and to take a photo, but to take good ones, it's slightly different. But yeah, really great. And there are a few alternatives, but we found Matterport is the most easy, user-friendly. You can transfer spaces over. So for instance, we could completely scan a space, and then our client could create an account, and we could just 100% transfer that space over to them in literally 3 clicks of a button, which is really useful to us. You can download all of the data. So again, you could download the OBJ XYZ files, as well as all of the photos that they've taken, and floor plans as well. So because at first that was something that we were hesitant about using a third-party company to scan with, because we wanted to have that data just in case they completely disappeared, and then you're like, oh no, we've scanned these hundreds of buildings and suddenly all of the data's disappeared. You can download the data from it, which is really useful, and we would recommend that anyone who gets a scan done, that it's not very expensive to pay to download this data. I think it's less than 50 quid. So it's but it means that you're kind of like you're future-proofing and safe-proofing that a little bit. So we would always make sure that you put a tiny bit extra in the budget just to download that software. And again, then you can use that to pop it into CAD or something like that as well, and have a starting point to go off. Oh no, that's amazing that he wrote that software. That's really interesting. Yeah, it's really great software. It's really user friendly, really easy to use. And again, it's they're adding features all the time. So like Andrew talked about the blur feature, that's kind of a relatively new one that's really useful, because it means that if you've forgotten, you've left something in the corner or something like that you didn't want there, you can blur it out. So yeah, it's really great. And again, it's a software that's just becoming bigger and bigger and getting used more and more. So the features are getting just tighter and tighter, and used for more of a variety of industries rather than just the real estate industry. Any other questions? No. Well, if there's no other questions, then I think I'll leave it there. Again, thank you so much everyone for attending. It's been really great. Thank you again for Fenwick District Council and the Wisbech Heritage High Street Project. Thanks for inviting us to talk. And again, this is funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. So thanks for them, because otherwise we couldn't do this either. So yeah, this will be off on YouTube. Please feel free to share it as widely as you want to. Use it as you want, and if you have any questions, we're at Lincoln Conservation, so you can just Google that and you'll be able to find us there. If you have any more specific questions, we're more than happy to chat about that.
Thank you very much for doing this for us today, and thank you everyone for joining us. I hope that you have enjoyed it and it's been useful, and as Pip says, it will be available online really soon. Thanks for this afternoon, Pip. It's been lovely seeing you, and it was really interesting. It's so good to see the variety of uses that it could be used for.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you.